So welcome to another episode. We help companies pair with the world's most influential thought leaders here at L Management Group in an effort to educate and inspire their employees. Our guest today is no different. We are here with Dana Kippel. Dana is a polymath, author, filmmaker, and advocate for mental health and neurodivergence. She's pioneering the study of plasma intelligence and consciousness. Her visionary work positions plasma as a bridge between dimensions and timelines, reshaping our understanding of perception, potential, and the nature of reality. Her debut book, A New Force, Plasma Consciousness, and the New Human Potential explores plasma conscious synergy. Dana, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
This is so exciting. I'm so excited to talk to you. I would say that you're like a super dynamic speaker. You resonate with a lot of different audiences.
Yeah.
And, you know, what you focus on can be very scientific, heavy, high level, just up there. How do you like ground your talks?
Yeah, so I think I do this unique thing, and I don't try to do this on purpose, where I kind of fuse science, metaphysics, and mental health. So there's a lot of scientists that always come out with these great theories, but the one question I always want to know is, okay, what does that mean for me? Like, how can I actually take that, apply that to my life, and have some semblance of control over my destiny, rather than saying, oh, like A squared plus B squared equals C squared, but that means nothing for me, but maybe like I have to pay you to get that, you know what I mean? To make a machine to get that. So it's like, okay, how can I take scientific concepts, apply it to the world of consciousness, and then apply it to how we can make our mental health better, so we have more heart coherence, more reality creation? How can we feel more heart-centered and grounded in reality to live our best lives based on those things? And when I talk about science, I have no background in science. The normal person who's curious, and then I'll go into the science world and then bring it back to all my people and be like, here's what it is.
And that's a superpower, Dana. Like, you know, there's a lot of well-versed subject matter experts that have that formal training, that did go to college and have the like many multitude of degrees to give them that authority. But like you know, we kind of neglect the fact that anybody can study anything and be well-versed on it outside of the institution of higher education, which is not something that we sort of recognize as authority in the more traditional sense. But in talking and thinking about your story and your background, what was it that like led you down this path of exploration, consciousness, and things like that?
Honestly, I think it's curiosity. That's like the number one thing. I was going to say too, with the science, I notice patterns. So I take the patterns from science, and they're the same patterns all across everything. So I apply those patterns to our real lives. But what got me started on it, besides curiosity, I think, was this deep longing to feel good, to feel better. I was struggling with mental health in my late 20s, early 30s. I was not happy in my relationship. I had all this trauma from childhood that decided to revisit me when I turned 30, because I had suppressed it my whole life. And I kind of just started meditating, dropping back into my body. And I had this intention of just wanting to feel better. I felt like absolute shit. I felt like numb, almost not even like shit. I just felt numb and indifferent to life. And like I felt like a victim to life. And I was like, there has to be more than this. And then after I started, this sounds nuts, but after I started meditating a few times, it's like a gnosis, or a knowing everything about plasma, like that it's the vehicle for consciousness. You know, a lot of scientific things came into my head, metaphysical things came into my head. And I just had all this information that I feel like maybe was from my higher self, future self. I don't know. And now I feel like my destiny is to speak about it. So that's kind of how it's a mix of curiosity and just wanting to feel better. And I know everyone has that.
Yes, it's like super relatable, because everyone does struggle with that. And I think what's really special about you as a speaker who just shows up authentically, both online and offline, is really just your ability to naturally resonate with people who really need the message. You know, so what can you describe like some of your favorite audiences to talk to, and what is their biggest takeaways after one of your sessions?
Yeah, funny enough, I actually love a challenge. So my favorite audiences are probably professionals, because, you know, a lot of us, you know, are in corporate jobs. I was in corporate America all my 20s. I worked in business development and marketing. And I felt all these people were telling me I couldn't be myself at work, to not be authentic at work, to be more poised, to dress perfect, to look perfect, to say the right things. And I just wanted to like be like, ah. And I was like, why can't we be ourselves at work? So like, I love going in those places and like telling the bosses, telling people that work there, like, let's be our authentic selves, because that breeds creativity, and that breeds money, and that breeds abundance, and that breeds our highest timeline, or our highest vibration is when are ourselves everywhere, where we feel open to talk, open to create, open to talk about new ideas. Like we're not in a rat race. Like we could just all share how we're feeling and what we're thinking, and there's no judgment. Like, why can't we just go back to preschool and bring that into the workplace? Like, I don't get it. I really don't get why we're all just acting like adults when we're not. Like we all, like, I just feel like, you know, I've met so many of these men and women behind closed doors, and they're children at heart, and all they want is love, connection, fun. We're all missing those things. So it's like, I love to bring it back to audiences like that. And then I would also say my second favorite would actually probably be like teenagers, because I felt very lonely as a teenager, and I felt like there was nothing else past high school through when I was being bullied. And if I could have discovered there was like metaphysical magic, and also that my mental health would get better, and I had some control of that as a teenager, if I had anyone there just to talk to or listen to me and like understand the complexities of teenagerdom, like just, you know, the weird things I was getting into, I felt like I would have felt way more connected with the world and myself. And I would have had hope. I had no hope. I thought I was like destined to be this, you know, trash. Like that's how I really felt. So because of the mistakes I made. So those are my two favorite audiences, the hardest audiences, teenagers and really logical people.
And how is it really just like the art of just authenticity and connection that helps you talk to these people? And how do you, you know, like, because to your point, and just showing up authentically and just having that conversation, yes, that is something really important, but it's also just like, what is the mechanism in which we connect with them to really ground these messages, or to build that authority if it's coming from something that's more unconventional, like, you know, a background that is self-taught, things like that.
Sure. I think the first thing is I'm intelligent, so I could like talk to anyone. So I think maybe I can be underestimated a lot when I'm first like silly and stuff, because I was told too, don't act silly, no one will think you're smart. And I was just fuck it, because like you can still be silly and smart. What is that? Why? It's just so silly. It's like, so anyway, I think that's okay. So me being like that, I feel like opens them up to being like that, because a lot of smart people, once again, are actually very childish and silly. Albert Einstein was like a child. He was always doing practical jokes, and there are all these smart people that were silly. So I love to bring my silliness, my authenticity. And I think the way that I really connect with people is just, I'm honest. I'm not trying to solve or save anyone. I am here as a support. I am here as a mirror to their own power. And when I show up as my true self, speaking my truth, somehow I, and anyone who does this, becomes a mirror and a portal for the other person to recognize their truth and magic and authenticity. So it's almost like I'm like a seed that just goes in there and plants things, and then they all bloom as flowers, and they have to do the work. And I'm honest about that. And there's no thing you can follow. There's no steps you can follow. And I'm honest about that too, because we all go into those speaker rooms where we feel jazzed up for 30 minutes and then we have no change in our lives. We've all been to those kind of retreats and speaker things. I'm more of a speaker that plants the seeds, and then slowly the magic starts to happen in your life, and your curiosity blooms, and you're like, wait, you start questioning life. Like, why can't I be like this? Why can't I have fun? Why am I like, I don't know, you know, oh, maybe there is more than I thought. So yeah, I'm like a secret little agent that comes in there and plants vines. And for some reason, people just relate to me. I think because I'm just myself, and everyone thinks these things and no one says them out loud.
Yeah. Let's talk about your signature talk, this plasma consciousness. And, you know, let's break down first, you know, like a high level description of what that talk looks like, and what are some of the elements that you cover in it. And then now after that, let's talk about the key takeaways, some of those like seeds that you plant in the minds of your audiences. What does that look like?
Okay, so the talk is called The Magic of Plasma and Consciousness, How to Connect, Heal, and Create with the Fifth Element. Like the movie The Fifth Element. I love movies.
Love that movie.
I always throw I throw movie references in there because at the end of The Fifth Element, sorry to spoil it, we realized that the fifth element is her. It is our humanity. We are the star. We are the 5-pointed fifth element, and it's just so beautiful, you know, in our hands too, and just what we can do with that. But so my talk is basically to introduce people to the magic of reality. So a lot of people talk about just consciousness and about ourselves and about mind. I like talking more about body, mind, soul, and how that feeds back with the fabric of reality. So I have a theory that the fabric of reality is made out of a very fine plasma, like a living ether. It is, yes, it is speculative right now because it can't be proved in science, but so has every theory ever been like that. And it also is backed by science because plasma, the fourth state of matter, makes up 99.9% of visible matter. So it also, I say, makes up 99.9% of invisible matter. It makes up everything. Even physicists will tell you, we are all fishies in a soup of plasma, not realizing we're swimming in plasma, just like fishes don't realize they're swimming in water. So this reality that is made of plasma, of finer plasma, is intelligent. It is sentient, and it is the vehicle for our consciousness. So we can feed back with this intelligence of reality. And yes, we're all studying ourselves, but what about studying the fabric of reality and that intelligence? So I kind of go into my talk about not just how we become coherent ourselves, because when we become coherent ourselves, we obviously, reality kind of reorganizes around us. So we do have some control over our destiny, which is very important. But it's also about, okay, this fabric of reality, it is neutral, but it's a little bit feminine. It requires us to surrender, to not control and grip everything. It requires us to allow ourselves to receive. It requires us to learn active listening, to not think that we can just manifest exactly what we want or else we're a failure. But it's about like setting intentions and letting reality surprise us. So I kind of go in, and I'll go with the takeaways as well. So we kind of go from like controlling reality and like these logical steps to almost like how to dance with reality, if that makes sense. And the problems it solves, this would be for someone who feels disconnected from their intuition, from feeling safe in their body, from the natural flow of life. Someone who's maybe just feeling like they're always rushing through life, like they're always in survival mode. It's also for people who are feeling spiritual burnout from trying to manifest or control outcomes, realizing that it's actually not about the outcomes. It's about resonating as yourself, your highest self in the present, and how you can let outcomes you never even could have imagined come to you. So I kind of like teach people how to get in that state. It's called negative capability, and I go more into that in my talk. It's also for people who feel a lack of harmony between science and soul. There's either too mental in science, or soul, spirituality is too spiritual. I kind of ground it more in mystical and mentalism together, which is a more just holistic way of working with reality and life. And then also it's for people who are craving peace and authenticity instead of being on performance mode or perfection mode, which we all get stuck in, and I do as well. Yes. And then some of the core, you said that you wanted to know the takeaways or the promises of the talk.
No, I think that was perfect. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. Sorry. I'll let questions.
That's fantastic. And, you know, a lot of, I love like the Gen Z angle because like, and you know, all people struggle with these things, but like, you know, even, you know, as a professor, interfacing a lot with like the Gen Z audience myself, it does require kind of person who does lead with authenticity to connect with younger people. And like,
right through it. Yeah.
And like not everybody has the ability to actually do that. You know, like the old seasoned professional that has the PhD and has in the lab perhaps doesn't have sort of the ability to resonate and connect, you know, with this audience of people. And, you know, for them, they can smell it, you know, when you're inauthentic, and that closes them up to anybody who has anything to say, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. If you're not coming into the space with being authentic and open and honest and talking in the language that they can understand, even if
Yes.
it's something as complex like metaphysics and consciousness and plasma. If you're unable to like bridge that gap, they're not going to listen to you. And so I think what's really special about you as a speaker is really just your ability to just show up authentically and just do that, you know, and just have that conversation so that you can start to plant those seeds and just help them to feel comfortable and that they're not alone and that they're really seen, you know, and I think that's really important.
That is it. Sorry to interrupt you. That's the key thing is my number one and two missions are letting people know from the deepest core of their being that they are never alone and that they have so much power within them. And I have been to the loneliest of places. I've been to the darkest of places in the caves of my own life and mind. And I feel like that's where I kind of meet people. And I'm so grateful for those experiences in my life, because if I never, dealt with, being molested, rape, being taken advantage of in high school, horrible bullying, drug addiction, all of these things that I dealt with as a teenager, issues with female friends and I was chasing everything because I had a gaping hole within me. And I'm so grateful now that I went to those dark caves, because that's where I meet people. I meet people in that darkness and I lead the way out. And, they have to choose to take my hand. And then that shows them that they have the power. I'm pointing away, but it really is just pointing them back to their own self and power. So I feel like there's also a need for authenticity, like you brought up, which was an amazing point, because everything right now is very inorganic, like just internet and technology. And that's great, right? We have those things to support us and connecting in different ways, like parasocial relationships and connecting with people across the country. But I think the children and the teenagers and everyone, honestly, are really craving organic, natural, authentic, fun things. We're craving warmth. And I was craving that warmth my whole life. And I think our greatest weakness is our greatest power. So yeah, I've dove into that emptiness and I've come out with this torch and I'm like, come on, guys, let's all get warmth together from being ourselves and connecting with each other.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
I love that so much. And the work that you do is so important. And, my only hope is that, you can continue to influence and encourage audiences to kind of see that light and go in that direction, especially for groups of people who are oftentimes left without the feeling of hope and encouragement and need it the most, and not to leave those groups of people behind when we talk about,
Yes.
it's like, and that's another point where it's like, not everybody has the ability to even, because I'm just obsessed with this intersection that you exist in, where it's just something that is so traditional and has a community of curated intellectual experts that are well learned academically in the classroom, but the limitation of them is that they limit their own frame and they don't bring themselves into that perspective. It's like they're the observer of this work and they're studying the work itself as almost an entity that exists outside of themselves. And so I think that when someone like you is able to not just study this work but apply it, then you position yourself as a catalyst for impactful change in a lot of people's lives because of that.
Thank you. That was brilliant what you just said. Thank you so much. It really is true though. There was so much you just said, but I feel, okay, first of all, yes, the most underserved people I think actually are the teenagers who don't know how to ask for help, and the very successful professionals who are too embarrassed to ask for help or feel like they have everything. How dare they ask for help, or why do they deserve more than they already have? And also the scientists, because just like you said, such a great noticing pattern recognition that they observe, but they don't live the science. They don't bring, I've brought my own psyche, my own experience into this science. And that is why I almost created this like metaphysics of soul and science together, fused with mental health, of like, how can we live this? How can we live these patterns rather than observe these patterns? How do we embody them? Because when you embody this magic, which is science, it grows out of you when you all of a sudden are connected with everything, with reality, with each other. And yeah, great point. And also I think that they have, like you said, they have the blind spots in science, because when you don't, this is so true. And I've looked at this in history and it's in my book. When you look at the scientists and their belief systems, they're all influenced by their own trauma. So if we don't heal our trauma, if we don't learn to heal these things as children and teenagers, we all go out into the world as adults creating from this traumatized place, from this dark place. And that's why this world has so many funky things in it. And if we could create more from a place of joy and healedness, it's not a word, but that's okay. In science, we can, like we see in science right now, everything's depleting. All these technologies are depleting energy and nothing's in a feedback system. We need more systems theory. We need more back and forth feeding back into the earth rather than taking. And that's from our own emptiness of taking. So it's all projections. We need to heal those teenagers and kids.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree 110%. And I'm just excited that you have, journeyed on this path towards not just understanding and the application of all these things in your own life, but you're so willing to share with others, because I think that that's when and that's another gap, right? It's like the scientists want to report on things from the perspective of the observer of them and study these things outside of themselves. And then like another disservice is that like they don't apply it to themselves, one, but also don't share it with other people in the application of it either. And so because you're bridging that gap where it's like, yes, I am looking inward and applying these things to myself, but I'm also writing a book, I'm also helping people engage with the material to plant those seeds, then it's even more powerful that way.
Great point. I think there are two things there. I think they're, number one, scared of being wrong before, usually before a theory is perfect. I think they're scared to put it out. And I'm more like, hey, I don't know everything. None of us know everything. We're all playing this silly game here. Let me put out what I think I know. And then you apply what you think you know. And we're further along than we might be if we're just waiting until science perfect, which it's never, because the truth always changes and science actually is never solid. So why don't we just put stuff out as we think it? I've never understood waiting until something's perfect to put it out, just my own personal opinion. And then I also think that, oh gosh, what did you say? I might've forgot. Scientists putting things,
they don't share them. Like they know them, they study them, they observe them, but one, they're detached from them as it applies to themselves, but then they also don't share them with other people.
Because of competition. So
yeah.
I don't even like the thing that my biggest competition is myself. I'm not in competition, period. I'm living life. Yeah, I'm living my life. And if they realize that, so I've heard this, I've literally talked to scientists and they want to tell me their theories and they don't want to hear mine. And I'm like, well, why don't you want to, hear mine? And they're like, well, I'm scared that it'll influence what I think. And we have to remember that scientists need to be an open system, not a closed system. There is a lot of misconceptions that we're in a closed system of reality. It's deterministic, and that is just not true. We can close our system when we're writing our book on our theory, right? But when we live, and scientists, if they could live as an open system, when I was my most smartest, which I know is not a word I don't either, but when I was at my most smartest, I don't know everything. When I felt the most smart is when I was reading all these books, just open and curious, learning from every scientist, every person. And if I didn't agree with something, I just tweaked it in my own theory. Instead of being scared to read other things, I think we don't realize that everyone has a truth, right? Everyone is valid. Everything's true and everything's false. And the more truths we take in, the more we can actually refine our methods and we learn more prisms of the diamond. And they're shutting out all of these prisms and they're like, no, I just want to focus on this. And it's almost like they're scared they're wrong, but they don't realize it's yes and. They can be right and the other person can be right. But then if they don't agree with it from their reality, from their perspective, because all their theory is a perspective, then they can tweak it. And it actually might help them refine their perspective because it's a corner they never looked at. And then also they're all in competition with each other because there's ego because no one's healed their trauma. So it's like they're all scared. Everyone's going to like cut each other off and everyone wants these prizes and money. And it's like, if we weren't after prizes and money, then we actually might fucking do something to change the world. I noticed that my friend Dylan always says this, nothing cool is ever invented. He's like, why is everything kind of boring? Like nothing cool is invented, like the things I want to do, which will be cool. And I was like, that's because everyone's after money and power. They're not, they don't
Mhm.
go with their curiosity. They're after outcomes, money, and power. And if we just opened up a little, we could see this beautiful, bright world that we can make it. And I have faith that we can do that.
Yeah, I also have deep faith that that's
Yeah,
possible, and I know that I can feel within myself that that's exactly where we're headed. So
totally.
that's even, you know what I mean? It's like it's something that we've talked about that exists a lot in the generations that have come before us, but like it
Yes.
is true, and we can feel that it genuinely just has no space anymore, which is, I think, even why we're able to identify it and
Mm-hmm.
just look at it and be like, oh, that doesn't feel good and that doesn't make sense. So let me just try to do something different and go in another direction, because I can clearly see that that's not how we're supposed to be operating, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many things in the traditional the institution of science and the study of science that does absolutely come from that trauma and that pain and that fear. Another thing that I'm sure we can talk at length about is this idea that, you know, even in terms of like a theory or a study, it's only legitimized through like a peer review, through an avenue in which like other
Yep.
professionals have read it and agreed with it. And if you don't have a credible peer reviewed, like a million people have to agree who come
Yeah.
from like this like gang of people who hold a specific idea for
Yeah.
your thing to have like to be valid, for it to be seen, for it to be real. It has to align with like this very toxic idea of like, well,
Ugh,
who read it, who
it's
read
all
it, and who
politics.
agrees with it. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's
No,
ridiculous, and it's out
so
the
all
door.
out the yes, goodbye. So I said to myself, I remember last year was a very formative point in my life, because a lot of people were telling me, oh, are you going to go in the lab and prove this plasma? And I was like, I can spend my entire life trying to build machines to prove this plasma like everyone's done for 300 years, whether they called it animal magnetism, luminiferous ether, um,
Mhm.
ether, orgone energy. I can make all these machines, do all these things, externalize it, or I can teach people how to experience it and believe in it themselves. The proof is from your own experience. I don't give
Yeah.
an F about a Nobel Prize or proving anything. If the scientists want to do that for me, go ahead, put in the work. But I want to prove it by experience and showing people, hey, the fabric of reality is intelligent. Me planting seeds about this, you're going to start feeling it. You're going to start seeing it in your life, experiencing it. That is so, and feeling it in your heart. That is so much more valuable than any paper. So I could care
Yeah.
less if I ever have a PhD or ever get peer reviewed. Goodbye, peer review.
Bye to the peer review. Dana Kippel, that was so awesome. Thank you so much for your time. This was such a robust and beautiful conversation. And I love all of the things that you're studying. And I, you know, do believe that you are absolutely one of the world's most influential thought leaders. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I will say, just driving the science back in there, what you said, where we feel like we're out of change, where the past few hundred years we made a thought we were out of change, but now we're like embodying that change, right?
Yeah.
In material science, they're finding all these things with plasma and ionized properties and the behaviors of matter, how matter is moldable and things are changeable just by light alone, and water, and things can be influenced by consciousness. So we are actually right now at science, at that precipice of meeting magic and science. And I also always say the singularity is not when AI becomes conscious. It's when we realize that we cannot make any more technology without becoming more conscious and emotional ourselves. And emotions and technology are going to fuse, because technology is actually going to be synergizing with our consciousness. I think it won't be conscious. It will be sentient and support our evolution of consciousness. And when we heal, we will all freaking realize that.
And it's people like you that are studying this and also embodying the science that are helping us get to that point, right?
Yeah.
So like without your work, without your focus, without your steadfastness and trying to just like apply this into people's lives, then we would be lost. So, you know, that it just drives home the point of like why your work and what you study is all the more important and real. And then even just your ability to just make it relatable to people like me and Gen Z and even the professionals, right? Like it has merit in that regard too. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you.